Well, Andrew Yang has finally had it with MSNBC, and he's demanding an apology for their lack of coverage of his presidential campaign. Here are his tweets. Was asked to appear on MSNBC this weekend and told them I'd be happy to, after they apologize on air, discuss and include our campaign consistent with our polling and allow surrogates from our campaign as they do other candidates. They think we need them. We don't. They've omitted me from their graphics 12 plus times, called me John Yang on air, given me a fraction of the speaking time over 2 debates, despite my polling higher than other candidates on stage. At some point, you have to call it. The whole time we have gotten stronger. This is actually bad for MSNBC. It will only get worse after I make the next debates and keep rising in the polls. The people are smarter than MSNBC would like to think. And he is absolutely right. And it is about time that he calls them out for this, because they have been blacking him out for since the beginning, since the time that he's began running. There's actually a great list that I've linked down below that chronicles all the times that the mainstream media have either forgotten Andrew Yang or called him by the wrong name, or have in other ways smeared him, misordered him when it comes to, when they're showing the graphics. Let's go over some of the ways here. They've omitted him from graphics or lists at least 20 times, at least 20 times. Now, they have apologized for about 14 or 15 of those times. They've made corrections. They've said, oops, sorry, in their tweets. But could you imagine 14 times, 15 times that they've had to issue apologies saying, oh, we forgot Andrew Yang. Here he is. This is a corrected graphic. You should only have that happen once or twice at most, and then it should never happen again. But they do it over and over and over again. During an interview in April with Yang, they were actually talking to him. And as they're talking to him, they show a graphic of all the candidates who are in the race. And he's not in that graphic as they're talking to him. When listing candidates who made the debate, they've omitted him and they've put in others who didn't even qualify for the debate. So just egregious mistakes. During the very first debate, Yang, even though he outpolled half of the stage, he was asked the fewest number of questions and received the least amount of talk time during that debate. He has moved up to 6th in the polling, but is often excluded, or other candidates are moved above him on the visual list, like Klobuchar or Beto O'Rourke. When discussing candidates' third quarter fundraising hauls, CNN, it's not just MSNBC, by the way, it's CNN and ABC. It's all the mainstream media have buried his campaign in one way or another, but CNN excluded Yang, who raised $10 million in the third quarter, and they included Cory Booker, who raised $4 million less than Andrew Yang. In an Iowa mock election, Yang got the same number of votes as Biden and Pete, but wasn't even mentioned. And recently, they excluded Andrew Yang from a report that showed all the candidates polling above 0%, and they actually included Bloomberg, who's not even in the race yet. So these are all the times that they have visually or verbally excluded Andrew Yang in some ways. There were times that they were interviewing him and he only spoke for about a few seconds, and then they cut away and they said, oops, sorry, we got to cut to something else more important than you. They've done that a number of times to Andrew Yang. During the debates, now there have been 5 debates, Andrew Yang has spoken the least amount of time of all the candidates during all of the debates. He has the least amount of talk time, and yet he polls around 6th. I mean, the guy has been climbing in the polls. He's been gaining a massive amount of momentum. In fact, the studies say that he is the fastest growing campaign out of all the candidates for the percentage of growth. His is the fastest growing campaign of all of the candidates, and yet they never talk about him. There was a study done by Business Insider, and they actually calculated for the debates the amount of talk time all the candidates have been given. And they actually compared it to where they're at in the polls. And they kind of did this math equation where they said, okay, everybody at a minimum should be getting 9 minutes of talk time. I don't think Andrew Yang has yet to receive 9 minutes at all in any of the debates, but they say that the baseline should be about 9 minutes for all the candidates. And then those who poll higher get more talk time based on how they poll. I take issue with that completely. I think that all the candidates should have equal amount of talk time. If they've made the debates, then they should be given the same amount of talk time. time. That's how how they raise in the polls. They rise in the polls based on exposure. When people start to get to know them and hear about their platforms and their ideas, then people start to say, hey, you know what? I like that guy. I like that girl. I'm gonna think about supporting them or look further into their campaigns. But what they do with these debates is they bury the candidates they don't like. They give more talk time to candidates that they like. And it's completely a sham. This is why I hate these debates. I hate that they're run by mainstream media outlets. They're in it for the ratings. They don't really care about the Democratic Party. They don't care about the people. They care about their bottom line and making money. And so they're just looking for those fights. They're looking for the sound bites. They're looking to give people more of, the people that they think that they want to see and less of the people they don't want to see. And Andrew Yang happens to be the one that they think nobody wants to see. Interestingly, like I said, Andrew Yang's campaign, however, is the fastest growing campaign out there. So he's clearly gaining a lot of support. The problem is the establishment. The establishment, be it the Democratic Party establishment or the establishment with the media, and they're all in bed together, by the way, they don't like Andrew Yang. They don't like that he's this political outsider who's never held public office. They don't want that kind. They are career politicians. They want to support career politicians, and they want to keep that status quo going. They don't want another political outsider the way Donald Trump came in, never held political office, and he wins. They don't want that to happen with an Andrew Yang. Anybody they think is a threat, they bury in one way or another. We've seen them do this with Tulsi Gabbard over and over. With her, they smear her. They take her past or things that she's done, and they say, and they twist it and they turn it, and they turn things that should be positive into negatives. They've painted her as this Assad apologist who cozies up to dictators and Steve Bannon and white supremacists. This is what they've done to her. Now, Bernie Sanders, they've done something similar. It's harder to do to Bernie because Bernie has so much support, but they try. The media coverage on Bernie is largely negative. There was recently a study that was done that showed that most of his press coverage is negative in tone. And Andrew Yang, they can't really say anything negative about him because he doesn't have enough of a history, so they just forget about him. That's the strategy. Just, shove that guy in the corner. We don't need to actually hear from him. He's got silly ideas. It doesn't matter if those ideas are actually growing in support with the Democratic base. We don't like those silly ideas. So we're just going to go ahead and forget about them and ignore them. And maybe if we ignore them, they'll go away. Well, guess what, guys? They're not going away. Andrew Yang is gaining in support, and you're probably going to see him at the December debate. And now that he's called them out, they're going to have to give him more time. They're just going to have to. This would be for them to ignore now and to not give him equal amounts of talk time on the debate stage or equal amounts of coverage in the media. It's going to look bad. It's going to look really bad. So I think that we might see the tides change now that he's called them out. Now, CNN did interview him. Ana Cabrera interviewed him about him calling out MSNBC, saying, hey, you guys need to be giving me some, you guys need to apologize to me. But CNN is also part of the problem. They're also doing it. ABC is also doing it. A lot of these networks are doing this. So it's about time that Andrew Yang stands up and says something. Tulsi Gabbard has been calling out the establishment for a while. She can't be the lone voice. Steve Bullock has also called out the establishment. Now, nobody ever hears from him, but he has at time called them out, and more need to. Now, Bernie Sanders, a big beef that a lot of us have is that he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. And he needs to be calling them out a lot more because we need bigger voices that are going to stand up and say, you know what? This whole thing is crooked. It's rigged. It's establishment. It's all about your cronies, and it's got to end. This is not the democratic process. And yet it's the Democratic Party, right? It should be in the name here. We need a democratic process that's truly for the people. So good thing Andrew Yang is calling them out on this. We'll see how it shakes out from here. We'll see if it gets any better for him. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. So thank you so much for watching the show. Please subscribe and hit the bell. I appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.